Welcome back everyone. We're trying something a little new here today. I've just finished up a really fun couple of weeks up at the Whistler Bike Park, providing some training, some mental strategy workshops for the Whistler Bike School instructors. It was a really fun time. It's left me super fired up, super inspired to share some of these learnings, some of these trainings with you guys here today. So this training is for anyone who's experiencing that feeling where they know they could be riding up on this level here, they have the skills, but for whatever reason, they're currently a notch or a couple of notches down from that. It could be that they've perhaps had a setback, a physical injury on the bike. Maybe it's more of a mental setback, a mental block. Maybe it's that they ride really well when they're out there by themselves on trails they know. But as soon as they perhaps find themselves in a group environment where there's that feeling of pressure or anticipation, maybe it's a race environment, whatever it is, there's that invisible force that seems to block them from using their full potential, from actually accessing the skills that they've trained and built and practiced over the years. If any of that stuff resonates with you, if you feel like you're perhaps sometimes your own worst enemy, you need to just get out of your head, stop overthinking and get out of your own way, this video is for you. So I'd like to start here with a really geeky equation for reaching your version of high performance. Now this might seem miles away from actual mountain biking. Stick with me. Maybe if you're an engineer or you've got an analytical mind like I do, it's going to really resonate with you. But this one applies to all mountain bikers, no matter what your learning type is. So whether you're a watcher, a thinker, or a doer, this equation still applies to you. And now this one, full credit to Dr. Craig Manning. He's done some fantastic work in the sports psychology field. And this is where I first came across this equation. Okay. So basically, this is an equation for reaching your version of high performance, the HP we've got here. And now sometimes when I say high performance, people kind of jump to like, that's for people who are racing. That's for Red Bull athletes. That's for people trying to do tricks. When I talk about high performance, what I'm really talking about is your version of high performance, okay? So whatever that means for you. Maybe it means riding completely in the present, feeling clear, feeling like all of the things are just happening. You're just riding without really thinking about it. Maybe it means being able to go out with your kids and keep up with them. Maybe it means being able to go on group rides and really have fun in that situation. Whether you're out there leading the pack or whether you're following along, maybe you're mixed somewhere in between, you're able to have fun rather than get caught up overthinking out in the future or maybe getting frustrated by doubt or guilt about things that happened in the past. So high performance could mean anything, whatever your version of your full potential is on the bike. Maybe it's winning races, maybe it's going in races, maybe it's doing new tricks, trying harder terrain, or maybe it's just having more fun, okay? Whatever it is, the equation that's gonna help you get there is this. P, which stands for potential. Okay, these are the innate skills, abilities we bring into the sport. Maybe you're really tall, maybe you're really strong, maybe you've got a lot of mental grit. Whatever those skills are and those innate abilities you bring into the sport, that's your potential, okay? On top of that, we've got our training. This is what T stands for, okay? So this is all the work we do actually on the bike. Okay, so our training, we're learning how to corner better, we're mastering position and balance, we're mastering brake control, mastering pressure control, all of these things. This is our training. As well as that, it's this stuff as well. The training we do in the mental sphere could even be our equipment setup, okay? Whatever it is, that's our training. And this is basically the equation or the system most mountain bikers run. Potential plus training equals high performance. Okay, and this works really well. Obviously, the more we train, the better we get, the more effort we put in, especially if we apply a growth mindset rather than a fixed mindset. Some of you might be watching this and going, yeah, I get it. I've already leveraged my potential by focusing on the aspects of mountain biking I love. I've taken on some training in the other aspects and I've really leveled up and I feel like it works sometimes. But then in all those other scenarios that you described at the start of the video, Jake, it's still not working. That invisible force, that mental block, so to speak, is still there, okay? That's because there's often a third part of this equation, and that is minus interference, okay? So the full equation is actually potential plus training minus any interference will give us our end result, our version of high performance, right? So this interference, it could be anything. It could be physical. Maybe I've got a little bit of a sore shoulder and that's distracting me. It's taking away from my ability to apply the skills I have here in the present on my mountain bike. Maybe it's more mental. Maybe I'm getting distracted. Maybe I'm thinking about how fast my buddy in front of me is going, or how close my buddy behind me is coming up to my back tire. That's taking away from my ability to focus on actually using my skills in the present. So that interference is actually lowering my performance, my end result. Interference could also be thoughts of things that have happened in the past. Maybe I crashed on this corner that's coming up the last time I rode this trail. Maybe I've seen or heard lots of things about a particular rock roll, and now I'm thinking about what could go wrong. I'm catastrophizing rather than actually just riding well here in the present. Whatever it is, this interference takes away from our ability to focus in the present and actually use the skills we have. So the game becomes, if you want to become a better rider and you actually want to access your version of high performance, your full potential, the game becomes learning skills, learning strategies to lower, to actually minimize this interference as much as possible so that you can reach your version of high performance and ultimately have the most fun that's open to you on the bike more often. So as you probably know, if you've been following along for a while, I come from a trades background myself. So I like to place a big focus on actual practical skills, stuff we can actually use on the bike. If it just makes sense up here in our head, and I'm like, yeah, I get it, but we can't actually use it on the bike, I don't teach it, okay? So with that being said, this formula, yeah, it's pretty cool. It makes sense, right? But how do you actually use this on the bike? How do you actually lower your interference? I'm going to share just a really simple, really practical method that's going to be easy for you to take away, start thinking about on your next ride. Now, this is called the ABC of mental preparation. And this comes from sports psychology as well. So ABC stands for awareness. Breathe in. And concentration. Okay, so awareness, breathing, and concentration. If we would like to lower some of our interference that we might be experiencing on the bike, the first step is actually raising our awareness. How is our nervous system feeling? When do we need to activate it? When do we need to regulate it? And where is our sweet spot? Okay, so a really cool visual to keep in mind when we're thinking about raising our awareness so that we can reach our version of high performance is this. This is called the performance alertness curve. Okay, and this is a really simple scale. We've got 0 down here, we've got 10 up here. And basically the scientists that first discovered this and published this literature, they were called 𝗪𝗏 and Dodson. They discovered that as our body's alertness levels or stress, sometimes we call them anxiety levels, as they rise, so does our performance. It goes up and up and up. Because the more we're paying attention, the more focused we are, the more engaged we are, the more we're able to get into the present and focus on the task at hand, use the skills we have, okay? Use our potential in our training. But what they found is as our alertness levels or stress levels keep going up, our performance actually starts going down. So it forms this really nice bell curve you can see here on the whiteboard. And I'm sure many of you watching have probably experienced, well, I hope you've experienced that sweet spot from time to time where we're right there, our confidence is right there in line with our skill level, our mind's blissfully quiet, everything is just happening for us. We can hear the tires gripping the dirt, we're completely in the present, free of fear of the future, free of guilt from the past, completely in the present, using the skills we have, and ultimately having loads of fun on our mountain bike, okay? This is the sweet spot. This is the flow state. This is where we experience kind of peak confidence, joy, all of those great emotions that I'm sure many of you would like to experience more of when we're free of interference, okay? So the first step in raising our awareness is actually starting to visualize this graph in our head and thinking about, okay, what is my body's alertness levels out of 10, okay? If I was, say, like an 8 or a 9, this is often where we feel a lot of anxiety, a lot of pressure. Maybe we're experiencing our body's natural alarm response, okay? This is often referred to as the fight, flight, freeze response. Sometimes in a mountain biking context, it causes us to unconsciously pull the brakes, freeze, or maybe the opposite, let go of the brakes and try and get the hard bit, the scary bit, get the danger over and done with as fast as possible. Or perhaps you resonate most with the third one, the flee. Perhaps we're fleeing the hard bit, we're getting off and walking around them, we're avoiding them, okay? Obviously, when we're out here and we're experiencing like an 8 or a 9 out of 10 on the alertness level, our performance is naturally going to be pretty low as a result, okay? We're going to be down here at like a 2 or a 3 on the performance scale. So not ideal. We're experiencing a lot of interference or a peak physiological load, all right? On the other end of the scale, perhaps I'm riding a trail that I think is really boring. Perhaps someone else has chosen it for me, riding it because my kids like to ride it, or because my buddy wants to ride it who's visiting from out of town, or perhaps it's just the end of a long ride. We're finishing off on an easy trail. We're feeling like our body's alertness levels are quite low. We're feeling drained. In this instance, we might be feeling kind of disengaged, bored, not paying attention. Maybe our mind is drifting off to what we're going to have for dinner after the ride, or the email we forgot to send at work before the ride. Maybe we're even just thinking about what the rider's doing in front of us, or getting distracted by what's happening off to the side of the trail. In this instance, our performance is also going to be pretty low, okay? So this is the first step. Again, going back to that ABC, this is our awareness. We're working on raising that awareness by just checking in at different points down the trail. Where am I on this scale? Often I find when I'm maybe cold and dropping in, especially if it's a bike park scenario or a shuttle type scenario, where we arrive at the top of the hill, we're about to drop into the trails, and our body's cold, our mind's cold, we're not yet in the zone. Often I find my performance is, somewhere on this side of the scale. My alertness is not quite in the sweet spot. Performance is still not quite where I want it to be. Okay, so in that instance, I'm going to try and apply a strategy, which we'll talk about next, to bring my levels of alertness up and get closer to that flow state. Often for me, this is around like a 4 to a 6 on those alertness scales. Sometimes as I've perhaps taken on, a big stretch, a big challenge in my riding, I'll experience alertness levels out here, maybe drifting out towards a 7 and 8. And if we don't catch them, it could end up, again, being right there in that alarm response. It's going to be really hard to get back in this point. So this is why it's really important to start doing those check-ins, raising your awareness around how is my body feeling? Am I in that relax, the parasympathetic nervous system, or am I perhaps rising up into the sympathetic nervous system, heading towards that alarm response, right? So this is called the performance alertness curve. Really important one to start visualizing. First step in actually making this a practical skill is doing some check-ins as we ride down the trail. Every time we stop, or perhaps every time we're on an easy bit, right, how am I feeling? And how do changes in terrain or changes in environment, scenario, maybe we're riding with different people, how do they affect my body's alertness levels? So that's A. B stands for breathing. Now I'm sure if you've been following along for a while, I'm a big believer in the breath. And perhaps you do some other off-bike mindfulness work. Maybe you do some yoga, some meditation, some breath work, Or maybe you're one of those crazy people that jumps in cold streams. No hate against that, it's not for me. But perhaps you've had some experience with discovering how our breathing can affect how we're feeling mentally, how our breathing can affect our nervous system. Maybe you've just even noticed that when you put your body under a little bit of physical stress, and again, this can be good stress, but we'll notice that our breathing changes, right? It becomes higher up in our chest here. That causes our heart rate to speed up, our blood flow to increase, our muscle tension to turn up, okay? On the other end of the scale, you may have noticed that when we take deeper, longer breaths, everything starts to slow down, okay? So our nervous system has two parts. We've got the sympathetic nervous system. This is the part that helps ramp everything up. And this can be really useful for, again, helping us get into the zone. We've also got the parasympathetic nervous system, okay? This is the side of our nervous system that kind of triggers that rest and digest or that relaxation response. Now, these are neither good nor bad. They're both very useful systems, but a really important component to understand is that they operate a little bit like two separate elevators, okay? So rather than the usual elevators we've got in apartment buildings that go both up and down, our nervous system, or the two components of it, either go up or down. The important thing to recognize is that we can't go up and down at the same time, okay? That being said, if we raise our awareness of our alertness levels and we catch them early on, that's where we can perhaps apply a strategy to try and get back, use our parasympathetic nervous system to bring us back down closer to the sweet spot in the middle. So breathing is one of the most foundational and most practical tools we can use to help alter our body's physiological state, okay? It's often said that breathing is the connection between the mind and the body, and I really resonate with that, okay? So how do we use our breathing? If we've checked in, we've done that self-check, and we've said, hey, you know what? My alertness levels aren't quite high enough. I'd like to become a little more alert, wake myself up a little bit, focus on the task at hand. Sometimes using breathing in a way that's a little shallower in the chest and a little faster can help us do that. So perhaps on the bike, I'm actually taking a couple of short, sharp breaths to try and wake everything up, get myself closer to the sweet spot. On the other end of the scale, often we will find ourselves feeling a little bit of anxiety, a little bit of pressure on the bike. And now this is completely fine. Again, that anxiety or that alertness can be a really useful tool at times. If, however, we find we get to the point where we're experiencing too much, we've done that check-in, that's perhaps a time when I am going to start with a really nice big exhale. You can even notice that I just do this once and my voice that starts slowing down here. Now you might be nodding along saying, yeah, Jake, I know this stuff, it makes sense. But I would challenge you and say, when was the last time you actually tuned into this, brought it to the front of your awareness and tried it on the bike? Because just like with our technical skill set, maybe we're practicing leaning the bike over into corners, maybe we're practicing scanning the trail more, we only get better at this when we actually do it, when we actually apply it. And we'll only develop confidence in the skill set when we've had those positive experiences out on the trail. So go out there, get the mileage, get the repetition, practice using breathing to alter your body's alertness state, okay? So we've talked about A, raising our awareness. We've talked about B, using breathing to help regulate or to help activate our body's nervous system. Number 3, or C, is concentration. You may have noticed that often as mountain bikers, we'll fall into the trap of overanalyzing everything, overanalyzing our technique. Again, especially if you fall into that thinker category, you learn by really getting really analytical, being really rational, thinking through things, and you really like to understand how the techniques or how the feature, how the trail works before you try it. Often in this instance, we'll find ourselves perhaps thinking of all of the things we've seen on YouTube, all of the tips our buddies have given us over the years, all of the things that could go wrong on this particular feature, all of the risks, the hazards, all of these things. And before we know it, we fly into a feature or a corner thinking about 10 things all at once, and guess what? We get none of them, right? We're in that kind of analysis paralysis. So what we need to do instead is keep it simple. Think of just 1, 2, or 3 max things that are going to be most important. So these things can be skills, they can be strategies, they can be tasks, they could even just be words. Okay, so it could be like pump. Pump for me symbolizes being playful, being heavy in the feet, light in the hands, being centered, being strong on my bike. Pump is often one of the words I have in my plan. Breathe. Breathe is often another one that I have in my plan because that helps me remember to keep my breath rolling, that keeps me fluid, keeps me in the present, and allows me to think about other things like this. Often look might be in there as well. This reminds me to keep scanning the trail, keep looking ahead. The point here is these can be anything, whatever 3 words resonate with you most. I know a good friend of mine and a coach I'm working with on my backflip project at the moment has a great mantra, really similar to this, and his 3 words are breathe, trust, commit. That for him symbolizes his entire process to dropping into a new line, dropping into a challenging line, minimizing that interference and staying in the present. So I encourage you to play around. Next time you're out on the trail, actually start thinking about, okay, what are the 3 most important things I need to focus on here if I'm going to let this be successful? Often we'll get to a feature and like I said, we'll start drifting out into the future about all the things that could go wrong. What if I hit that root? What if I look at that tree? What if my tire slips there or I sink into the back seat here? If we're like, okay, yep, those are all risks, but I can see the line of success here. I can see myself doing it. And again, I know I possess the skills. I deserve to be here. We need to shift our mind. We need to shift our concentration to just the 2 or 3 most important things that are going to help us get there. When we do this, and when we've got lots of practice doing this, we'll find we'll drop into the trail, perhaps repeating those 3 words. Pump, look, breathe. Pump, look, breathe. We're doing those 3 things. And before we know it, we kind of enter that state of blissful quiet and we're perhaps not thinking about anything at all. But the reason why this is most important is because much like if we're meditating or doing yoga, the goal's not to have this state of perfection, blissful quiet, and we're just in the flow state all the time like magic. That's not our goal. Our goal is rather to catch ourselves. And what I mean by that is whenever we feel our attention drifting away from the present, maybe it's out into the future, or maybe it's back into the past, or maybe it's just anything else out of our control. How our buddies are riding, how someone else made the trail look, how much grip is going to be at the bottom of that slab, and we just don't know yet. Whenever we feel our minds drifting away from the present, away from the things that are in our circle of control, we're going to experience more interference, right? We're going to experience pressure, anxiety. So if we've gone out onto the trail and we haven't got that plan, what we're going to concentrate on, we haven't primed our mind with that, we kind of leave that space wide open for interference to run rampant, to take control. Whereas when we've headed out onto the trail, we've got that plan and we're like, okay, 1, 2, 3, this is what I'm focusing on. This is what I'm focusing on. This is what I'm doing here in the present. Now when we feel our mind drifting, we can catch ourselves and say, okay, I feel my alertness rising here. I'm starting to overthink things. I'm going to take some deep breaths, whether that be on the bike or off the bike, sorry. And I'm going to go back to my plan. I'm going to concentrate on the task at hand so that I can get back to the present, start using the skills I have. This is the start of the work for you guys. Getting better at using your ABCs. Raising your awareness, actually practicing using your breathing while you're riding to, one, activate your nervous system to help get up into the zone, and then regulate your nervous system to help bring everything back down into a calmer, more relaxed place when you need to. And number 3 is raising your concentration levels, bringing the attention back so that you can focus on controlling the controllables, and so that you can focus on just the 2 or 3 most important things in each moment without overthinking. That's all for today. I trust it's been helpful. If you'd like to learn more about this stuff and perhaps dive into mental strategies from a point of view of what's specific to the specific challenges you're going through, we're actually going to be offering some mental strategy workshops that are going to be open to the public. They're going to be a free community building thing that I'm stoked to put on. We're going to be running some of these down in North Vancouver with our partners at North Shore Norco. We're going to be running some of these in Squamish, and we're also going to be running some of these in Whistler over the Crankworks period. So if you'd like to keep in the loop, you'd like to be the first to find out about those, jump on our email list, or better yet, jump into our free Discord community, which is a space to access more free resources like this, while also connecting with like-minded riders from all around the world who are interested in setting up practice rides and actually bringing all of this abstract knowledge, all of these concepts, down into the present, into practical tools. All right, guys, get out there, have some fun on the trails, and I'll see you on the next one. Cheers.